This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what have we got exciting that's coming up in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, in this episode we go back to California with Jackie Tonks for the second part of our conversation about her Bigfoot experiences. Enjoy! Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. This is Captain Peanut Phonobulax the Magnificent, and here, if you can see, is Lilith Tinkerbell, who is acting as my new designer keyboard stand. And we all want to welcome you to another episode of... Hang on, what's happening over there?
In the 1930s, a remote farmhouse in Cashan's Gap on the Isle of Man became the focus of weird events. Following a poltergeist outbreak, a small strange creature appeared. The Irving family, who owned the house, heard the animal speak. It claimed to be a mongoose called Jeff, who had been born in India in 1852. Jeff haunted the family for almost a decade and became world famous. He was even mentioned in the British Parliament. Although the house at Cashan's Gap was demolished in 1971, Jeff remains a Fortean icon to this day.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's me, Barry Tadcaster, back again, and this is my old mate, Jeff the Talking Mongoose. I'm an eighth wonder of the world, me! Thou shalt never know what I am. I already know what you are, you're a talking mongoose. Oh, that's by the by. I was born in New Delhi in 1852. Hey! Well, you've aged quite well, ain't you, mate? Oh yes. Jeff, we've got a special guest today, haven't we, on the show? We certainly have, Barry, we certainly have. It's Derek Griffiths off Heads and Tails and Play Away. And he's going to be smashing a length of sluiceway against a tree.
And there really isn't much that one can say about that. Let's try again. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. For those of you who don't know, every Wednesday evening at 6:30 for about a quarter of an hour, and every Saturday afternoon at 3 for about twice that, we bring you a mishmash, a mixture, a miscellany, a melange, and all sorts of other things, beginning with M of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. And for those of you who don't know what surreality is, I think that we should probably ask Queen Victoria.
Surreality does not amuse me, so it might as well, like lesbianism, not exist.
Actually, that is a myth. The popular belief that lesbianism was never criminalised, unlike male homosexuality, because Queen Victoria didn't believe in it, just didn't happen. Sorry to bust your bubble.
And now to return to my fascinating conversation with Jackie Tonks about her Bigfoot encounters.
I think he knew, but again, like when I first saw the Bigfoot, your brain can't cope with it. You think, oh, it's got a human, you know. And then he made the mistake of swimming and he sucked around and he pulled his machete out. He'd got on his belt. and it did not like that. And then suddenly there was something about this size got thrown, half the size of a breeze block with foam with massive force, and it actually went into the ground and made like a little hole, and it was not freezing, but the ground was relatively hard. So it was end of November, and it hit basically a little bit of puddle that was left, and it went all up my leg. And then I thought, oh my God, and that was literally landed about 2 feet from us, 2.5 feet. And I thought, whoa, and we were just out of there because we thought, oh my goodness, if that hit us, it would have broken a leg, or if it kill you if it hit your skull. And it just scared us. And I know people say, oh, you got to be brave, and oh, you got to stand your ground and try to get a photo, but you don't. When something does that, you get out of there. You're in survival mode. I mean, it was pretty terrifying. This thing was about 5 feet away. It was literally right behind, this bush. Estimate it's about 5 feet away from us, so we weren't going to stay around, and we just legged it to the car. And I'd managed to get, when we'd been up there, I'd managed to get a thermal imagery of the car engine cooling down, so a thermal image. I hadn't done any filming, sadly, because it was raining, but I'd quickly see whether I could get the thermal, and then it started raining, so I put it away and I haven't got any equipment out because it started to quite heavily rain. And so I said to Brooklyn, you pull the car sideways because I could see your car engine from where we were. I reckon I could see them if they come onto the path. So we very reluctantly said, all right, but anything happens, I'm out of here. Anyway, so I've got the window down, so I start to use my thermal, and suddenly something's coming right towards, what I think is right towards my face. So I start yelling, there's a face, there's a face. And we start yelling, both of us, screaming, absolute terror, thinking this thing's come right to the side of the car. And then I realised I got my finger over the end of the thumb. I won't say Brooklyn's language, it wasn't good. And he zoomed off, and we were both sort of shaking, it's like, oh my God. But we were really still shaking from the event with the stone, the rock. I mean, it wasn't stone, it was like a rock, but so and I think Brooklyn, he'd not encountered one before. He obviously believes they probably exist, because he's from the summit and everything, and he goes every year. But I think he was more in shock than me. He goes, man, what was that? What was that? And I said, what do you think it was? But it's not, unless it was a random human, and it wasn't really a hunting area, and it wasn't, they wouldn't have known we were there. And we didn't, Johnny gave us a rough location, but there's loads of little logging roads we could have gone up, and nobody followed us because we would have seen them, because it was really dense undergrowth, so you would have seen them behind you on the path. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure that was something, but can't 100%. But there's no way human throws like that. Even a top shot puller would struggle to throw with that force. So yeah.
What do you think about the accounts of Bigfoot type things in Britain?
I think, if anything, it's probably paranormal. I think they probably were here. They're probably something like the Russian Almasty. I think years ago, the Woodweeds was probably something very similar to that. But because we had Doggerland, didn't we? So it could well have, things could have come over then when we were joined to Europe. But I think if there's anything in England, it's probably paranormal or mistaken identity. I mean, there was that one, wasn't there, with the guy, the so-called Bigfoot that was seen drinking out of a pond in a wood, and it turned out to be a guy in a orangutan outfit, come back from fancy dress, was very hungover, and even the stagnant water looked terribly tempting, So you get a lot of things. I think there could be some escapees, of apes, and I think it's. I mean, you get the one on the Shropshire Canal, the man monkey, and that was supposed to be ghost of a drowned man, or that was the theory, wasn't it? And that's very strange. And that that was actually seen about, I think it was 15, 20 years ago. The Canal and River Trust did a survey, and somebody said he didn't even know about the man monkey. He said, I saw this chimpanzee type thing, and it was exactly the spot near the bridge where it's seen. And he said, I called my family out, but they couldn't see it. It was right in front of them. So obviously he could see it and they couldn't. And then he sent in a report, and then the Canal River Trust said, oh, do you know that's probably the man monkey? And he didn't know anything about it. So it's really weird that he reported that. So that was probably it. And he described it as a weird looking apey chimpanzee thing. So, yeah, that was an interesting one.
But the ones in North America, the ones
you know, I mean, Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel Lee as well. He's obviously got those interesting footprints, hasn't he? Now, so you know what that is. I mean, it's coming back. Ape and old world monkey, isn't it? I mean, the only other things I've said to Daniel, there could, you know, you got Bristol Zoo, could have been somebody's keepers, walked his dogs and been wellies he uses in the closure, but it's footprints very strange. So you know, it's all the things together, isn't it? And reports of things. So that it does intrigue me whether I mean, you've got the Noah's Ark Zoo's not far from there, whether something's escaped, because obviously, you know, these escapees then get big fines, can't they? So you know, they're not going to readily admit. So, you know.
I don't know what animals they've got at the Noah's Ark Zoo. I don't know if they've got anything that would leave that big a footprint.
No, exactly. It was a rather large footprint, wasn't it? And I mean, you could get time slips, I suppose, and I don't particularly believe in portal type things, but you could get time slips. I mean, I've done paranormal research and I've seen what very likely to like time slips, you know. So I think, you know, Stephen Hawking, the physicist, I mean, he said, you know, he believes ghosts and these things can exist, you know, there can be time slips. So it could well be something, you know.
Yes, I mean, these things are obviously real. They're obviously real, but I think that they are defined by laws of science that we just don't know yet. Because we don't know how the universe work. But the ones in North America...
No, I mean, there are some strange things, yeah.
The ones you've seen in North America...
Oh, yeah, I mean, I definitely, 100%. I think they...
Flesh and blood animals.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think they do. I mean, tigers produce infrasound, elephants produce infrasound. I think they can do some weird things with that. I think with them, it's more likely to get away where they're providing infrasound. Because I was actually the camp in California. We had an incident with a lady being what they call zapped by infrasound. She purposely camped away from us, so she thought she'd more like to get a Bigfoot counter, Kathy, and she went to go to the loo and walked into something, and she could just about see, but it looked like a great big tall person thing in front of her. And suddenly it started letting out this low growl, and she suddenly couldn't move. And I was woken up by this scream, and she's shouting, I can't move, it's in front of me, I can't move. And she's not scared of Bigfoots to the point of, I say to her sometimes, you know, you're a bit too, you know, they potentially can eat people. You know, David Paulides, the police detective, has done research on that. You know, there's probably rogue ones that do, ones that don't. But she, you know, she's usually not scared of them at all. But she was terrified. And Tom sort of tried to get out of his sleeping bag, and I'm like, oh, just waking up. I hear this yell, and he shot out of his sleeping bag really fast, and he's got, you know, quite disabled now. He's quite elderly chap, but he didn't know how to move fast. And he shot out and he goes, oh, you're a big lad, aren't you? And I could hear something really heavy walking away. Kathy still screaming, I can't move. And you could hear the sound of some really heavy moving away. And I'm like trying to get my zipper stuck in my sleeping bag. I'm desperately trying to get the sleeping bag off me. And then he said, obviously gone. And Tom said there was a Bigfoot right in front of her, and he reckoned it used the infrasound so she stayed there and it could get away. And we went over to her and her legs were just rigid. She just could not move. She's like, cannot move. And her legs were just like boards. So we had to like almost, pick her up and, rub her legs because so she'd done something to her, and she's she's not scared of them at all. And it was really, and she's had encounters before, so it was really weird. Her legs were just stiff, so it could have been a severe fear response, but it was almost like something had just affected her legs. It was quite weird. And also Dave Archer, when we went out on the 2012 expedition, we went up to this spot where Laurie Simmons, his brother, had been chased down a mountain by one with his mates. And we got in this bit, and it was like almost like a little canyon. And suddenly, Dave's face, Dave, I mean, we know Dave. Dave is fearless. Dave throws himself down bear holes looking for signs of Bigfoot. He'll pick up poisonous snakes. Dave is fearless. Dave suddenly, his face changed, and he said, "I've got to get out of here." I was going, "What's the matter, Dave?" And he just legged it. And he reckoned afterwards infrasound was affecting him because he's completely fearless. And he said something suddenly, he felt overwhelming fear and had to get out of there. Now, Dave is, he's reckless. He's not scared of anything. So for him to get like that, something must have affected him. So I think that was probably infrasound, and that was a prime Bigfoot area up there. So yeah, that was quite strange.
With the lady you were talking about first, how long did the effects last before they started to wear off?
I can't remember now. I think she was all right after about 20 minutes, half an hour, but it was quite strange. And other people have said that they felt the legs had just gone, couldn't move. I've spoken to quite a few people who said they couldn't move. And tigers, there's a really good documentary on Bigfoot infrasound. It's on Ma Wing or something. It's on you can get it on Prime. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I was actually allowed to show it in England for the first time, and nobody had. The guy let me. Oh dear. I can always put it in the comments for people. But it's a documentary on infrasound, and a lot of people say they can't move, and also they talk about tiger trainers. When they've upset the tiger, suddenly the tiger start using infrasound and they can't move. And elephants do the same. So that is quite a common thing when they use infrasound. Although my theory is interesting. I was talking to people from the Rocky Mountain Bigfoot group, and they were, doing stuff with about infrasound. They were in a big tent, and the Bigfoot came to the side of the tent, and everybody was fine apart from this one guy who was new, and he got affected. Nobody else did, just him. And some people have described hearing this sound like rocks in a stream when Bigfoot's using infrasound. Now that sounds like sonar to me, which sounds pretty far-fetched, but some blind people have actually taught themselves sonar. I met one of them once. I was in this waiting room with this lady, and I could hear this click, 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 click sound. So I said, "Oh, I think there's," I was just waiting for a client, and I said, "Oh, I think there's something wrong with a plug." And I was just crawling under one of the chairs to check we hadn't got a short circuit or something. And she said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, that's me." And I said, "Oh," and she went, "Oh, I'm visually impaired, and I've developed my own sonar." And I just click and I hear the bounce back and I know where I am. And then her worker came and said, "Oh," I said, "I'm really interested about this infrasound." She gave me a demonstration, and it was pretty impressive. And there's a guy, I think he's American, and he's learned to ride a bike, completely blind. But he uses sonar to find his way around, which is amazing.
Good God.
So there are, yeah, very, very, that's on you can see that on YouTube. So it's not that far-fetched that Bigfoot, especially if they become nocturnal, might be used in a form of sonar with infrasound, especially the sound of like pebbles in a stream. rocks in the stream. That sounds like sonar to me. And I've been right by dolphins, and that's the sound sort of you hear. You hear that sort of sound. So that's my theory I proposed. I don't think anybody else had proposed it, that they might also be using a form of sonar, which would explain why the new guy in a tent affected and nobody else, because they were trying to suss him out. You know, they were trying to see what he was, and then they didn't feel too comfortable with him. So it could be a combination of the two.
That's absolutely amazing. I've never heard of either people or Bigfoot using a sort of sonar, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense and explains a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, why else would the one guy who's new be affected and go? I think he keeled over as well, because some people are very sensitive to infrasound. I know he felt unwell. He had to sit down, I think, and he went dizzy, and I think, you know, infrasound can do that. But why would one person? And I've also been sonared by a dolphin. I've had a dolphin right in front of me doing the sonar, and makes all your organs wobble. You can feel it. I mean, you know, they actually say dolphins can tell if a woman's pregnant as well. They'll get really gentle if they realise a woman's pregnant. And you could feel them zapping. And I mean, not killer whales. Sperm whales can kill with sonar. They reckon they sort of partly knock the squids out with. And there have been people rescuing sperm whales from nets, and they felt like their organs were going to rupture because this thing started the sonic, you know, pulse, and they literally felt their organs were going to go, and they had to move away. And then they said the sperm whale must have realised it had hurt them, and it stopped doing it. But they said they literally felt like something was going to rupture. It was so powerful. So they obviously can, you know, they can do stuff with it. So yeah, why not Bigfoots? They could have developed something, and you know, if visually impaired people can, why not a Bigfoot? You know, if it's become mainly nocturnal.
Gosh, I wish we could get hold of that woman who you met in the hospital waiting room, because it'd be brilliant. She probably wouldn't want to be experimented on. But
quite a few. They're actually
isn't it?
teaching it now. There's a lot more people now. They're teaching it now.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Downs. I'm the director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which is the largest mystery animal research group in the English-speaking world, and we like to think the best. We've been going now for over 30 years, and in those 3 decades we have sometimes carried out campaigns to try to raise money for equipment or for expedition expenses. But one thing we never do is to raise money for ourselves, because money is nowhere near as important as the search for expanding the boundaries of human knowledge, which is, at the risk of sounding horribly self-important, what this organisation is all about. However, we are a family in a very real sense, and there have been times over the years that we have made appeals to raise money for members of the said family who are down on their luck. And this time I want to tell you about my friend Lars Thomas. He was one of the earliest members of the Centre for Fortean Zoology back when, in 1994, we started publishing our magazine, Animals and Men. And I have known him therefore for 30 years this year, which seems to be a remarkable length of time. He has recently become very ill, and he's in a hospital, partially paralysed and not able to work or indeed do anything very much. And so Richard Freeman phoned me the other night and suggested that we do a crowdfunding exercise to try and raise some money for him while he is in such a dire straits. And so I had a word with Miss Guinevere, and she went and set it all up. And you can read all about the appeal here at this link. What I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that Lars is a very nice, sweet and kind man who's been very kind and generous to all of us over the years, and it's about time, I think, that the CFZ paid something back. Please dig deep in your pockets and do whatever you can to support this very worthwhile appeal. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say a big thank you to everybody but for whom this episode could not have been made, especially my special guest, Jackie Tonks. But I'd also like to thank Richard Freeman and V. McCrinnan and my producer, Louis, and also Graham Inglis, the Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, who also happens to be my carer, because for those of you who don't know, I'm in a wheelchair most of the time, and Graham gets me up in the morning, puts me to bed at night, drives me to the hospital and does all the other things which these days I am unable to do for myself. And I also want to say a big thank you to Gwyn Palmer, the Assistant Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, but for whom I wouldn't be able to do all the things that I do want to do with this organisation. I'm going to be back again next week. What are we going to be talking about? I'm not actually sure because I haven't got that far yet, but somewhere along the line we're going to be talking about the riddle of the St Kilda house mouse, which is something that's fascinated me for years. Whether it is going to be an On the Track or an On the Track extra, I don't know yet, but we'll just have to wait and see how it pans out. So I just have one important question to ask. Are you there, Mr. McCrinnan? Because if you are there, Mr. McCrinnan, I hope you're going to be watching the show next week, because I'm going to be there, as always, doing the notifications and the live chat and all the other stuff I do. And if you're going to be watching the show, Mr. McCrinnan, I'll be seeing you.